On tonight's episode of BZN TV, we're talking to Susy Solis, a bilingual journalist with more than a decade of broadcasting experience working for the largest news stations in Dallas. After building a successful career as a television news reporter and anchor, Susy decided to chase her dream of becoming an entrepreneur. In 2014, Susy founded Solis Media Strategies and now helps individuals and businesses present their message to the world. We're here with Susy Solis, a bilingual journalist with over a decade's worth of experience in the industry before going out and founding her own company, Solis Media Strategies. Susy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, Susy, what was that like to just blaze your own trail, go out on your own, create your own business?
Well, I mean, it's one of the scariest things that you could ever do, because there's no safety net,
right?
You know, and in reality,
just yourself, right? Just
exactly.
Yourself.
So everyone thought I was crazy when I quit my job as a reporter, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna bet on myself, you know, and so I always said, look, I gotta try it. If I don't try it, then I'm gonna regret it. I'm gonna feel bad. I'm gonna say, why didn't I do this? I felt like I had already conquered being a reporter, and I wanted a new challenge, and so that's what I did. I started my business.
So what's been one of your favorite parts about having your own business? What do you love the most right now?
Well, I think, you know, there's a price. You can't put a price on freedom, you know? And being able to do what you want and do what you love, you just can't put a price on that. And trust me, I've been doing this for the past almost 5 years, and don't get me wrong, every single year I try and quit and say I'm going to go and find a job and whatever. It never happens, you know, because I always weigh my options, and there's always going to be a sacrifice somewhere, and I just can't sacrifice that freedom anymore. Like, that's the best part.
Yeah, that I totally understand what you mean. So what are some of the reasons that you wanted to quit? Because I think that I'm sure, you know, a lot of our viewers, entrepreneurs or not, can relate to that experience of just feeling like, you know, there are obstacles that we want to sometimes throw in the towel on. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, you know, being a reporter, being a journalist is just a really demanding job. And it basically takes over your entire life.
Really?
And so I just didn't want that anymore. You know, I wanted to see what it was like to actually have a normal life, to have weekends, to have holidays, to not be out in the snow or ice, you know, on any given winter. And the other thing is, I just saw a need. You know, I saw, as a reporter, you just interview so many different kinds of people every single day, really smart people. And what I noticed is that even though they're really smart and they're great at what they do, they weren't necessarily really good at communicating that. And they also just didn't know really how the media worked. And so I was like, people, I can help you.
Yeah, you're like, I've got the inside scoop.
Exactly.
I've been doing this for years, for a decade.
Exactly. You don't have to be scared of us.
Right.
You know, the media can actually help you if you know how to work it. And so that was really the idea behind why I wanted to start my business. And that's how I started my business, is doing media training for different police and fire chiefs that I had worked with when I was a journalist.
Awesome. So what are some of the tips that you've seen really transform people's ability to communicate?
Well, I think the number one thing is a lot of people just get into their heads, you know?
Like overthinking it?
Way overthinking it, you know? And trust me, I mean, when there's lights on you and there's a camera, of course it can be a little shocking to some people.
Well, and you feel like, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, if there's ever a camera on, you feel like, oh, I got to be perfect now.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I even feel like that all the time on this show.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to always remind yourself, like, chill out.
Right.
Loosen up.
Because in reality, people just want to see you.
Yeah.
You know, and they can see when you're really stiff, you know? It looks awkward.
Good little robot move. Yep. Super awkward.
And so what I always tell people is like, look, if you're doing an interview, they're doing an interview and they're asking you questions that you already know the answer to. You're the expert already. And so in reality, all you have to do is really concentrate on that one-on-one conversation and forget about, I mean, I know it sounds easy to forget, but in reality, just focus on the questions and answer the questions and know that you're already the expert. And if you don't know the answer, you can say, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a crime.
Nothing's going to happen.
It's okay.
You're not, you know, being subpoenaed.
Right.
You know, you're not under oath.
Yeah.
So you can say,
So
I don't
that'd be a
know.
terrible show. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's such good advice because, like, it's true. Like, I think we all forget, even in daily life, this is a tip that we can really use. Whether you're in, in a job interview, people
Right.
also clam up then.
Exactly.
It's like, just ask me about you,
Well,
your story, your experience.
Exactly. I did a media training for a chief financial officer of a really good company, and I was asking him about, tell me about this specific program within that company, and he was like thinking about it and said some really stiff answer, and I go, okay, so let's say me and you were having dinner, we have a couple of drinks or whatever, what would you tell me? And then he told me like a really great answer, and I said, that's the answer.
Yeah.
You don't have to be anything different because there's a camera on you.
I love that. We'll be right back after this break. So we're here with Susie, and we're talking about what it takes to really just be yourself in life, on camera or in a job interview, on a first date at a party. It's funny how we always tend to get in our heads, and we just have to have a little more self-love.
Well, we make a lot of assumptions. I've done it too. Like when I've gone on a date and I'm just making all these assumptions about this poor guy,
What they're thinking about
yeah,
you,
and
how they're receiving what you're saying.
Exactly. And it's like, this poor guy doesn't even have a clue,
He's probably just like, she's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
So what I do now in these kinds of situations is I try and go in there with intention and say, you know what, Susie, go in with an open mind. You're just going to share a meal with somebody and see what happens. Be open to whatever this person is talking to you about. And then that way, I feel like you get closer and you get to bond more because you're being more real.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. Just like connect with yourself and let it flow.
Exactly. 100%.
So did you use that when you went out and started your own business, and kind of, how did you find that confidence to do that? And do you think that a lot of your on-camera experience contributed to your ability to do that?
Finding confidence, I feel like that's always been an issue for me. Like as a young child,
knowing you now, like, so surprised, right? So
that's good.
Thing. Okay, so let's listen closely to her tips. How'd you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like, you have to be self-aware. And for me, I didn't, I think what I really want and the things that I really wanted to see, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could start a business and could do it for at least 1 year. 1 year. And I knew that if I didn't do it, I would feel disappointed in myself for not pushing through the fear. And so the things that I want are greater than the fear that I have. And so sometimes you just have to walk in the fire, And
this is all quotable. Like, I'm like, where's my journal? So, yeah, sorry, go on. So good. Yes.
Thank you. But it's true.
Fire.
I think we set ourselves up because, again, we're making assumptions. We're thinking all of these things are going to happen. Instead of saying, okay, let's think about what's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Oh, the worst thing that could happen is, my business fails and I have to go get a job. Oh, that's not so bad.
You were doing that before. You're probably doing that now. Yeah.
Exactly. So just try it, And so what I tell people a lot of times when they don't want to do stuff or they're scared to do stuff, I'm like, for 1 day, just do the opposite of what you would normally do, right? So when you would normally say, when you would normally say no, say yes and see what happens.
I like that.
You
can apply that to like anything.
Anything that
like,
you do.
If there's a guy you like, message him right now.
Right.
Like, just like take life and dive in.
And just try it and then just let it go. Let it go to the universe, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then you'll have an answer, and you'll say, oh, well, the guy didn't like me, or guess what? He's been waiting for you to message him. You won't know.
Either way, you're not in that limbo state of not knowing, of expecting, of fearing.
You're not paralyzed.
You're moving.
Yeah, you're creating action.
Yeah, nothing feels worse than when you're paralyzed by fear or just not knowing something, and you're like kind of playing over it in your head. That's the worst.
Totally,
right?
Exactly. And we
Worse
do
than
it to
rejection.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And then in the end, when you go and do it, and then you look back and you think, I was making it so much worse than it actually was. So I think that's just something that we all do.
So do you just like coach yourself up in the mornings? What are some of your healthy habits for your mindset? Do you do the positive self-talk? Do you have a girl tribe that you rely on? How do you stay this powerhouse of like positive energy?
It's a lot of things. I do have a girl tribe,
okay,
for sure. You always have to have the women who are there, who are just giving you that extra butt pat and telling you like, hey girl, don't feel bad because I've seen you come from here all the way to here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I do, and this is another tip that I tell people, is like, I think when we're with our friends, if we're in a bad situation, or if they're in a bad situation, we're like, girl, you're beautiful, you're great, you're this, you're that. And we don't do that for ourselves. For ourselves, we're so much harder on ourselves.
So true.
And so sometimes what I do is like, okay, if I'm like, Susie, why the hell did you do this? You know, then I think, what would you tell a girlfriend who's in the same position? And normally it's like, girl, it's all good. Like, you're going to move on. You're going to be fine.
It happens. You'll be fine. You're great. Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a little bit of leeway. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're just so hard on each other, on ourselves.
We are. Yeah.
And we don't need to be, you know? And the other thing
it's not helping us.
It's not helping us.
It's not helping anything.
No.
Just be nice to yourself.
Just be nice to yourself. Exactly. And so another thing that I do is like, I want to be that positive example, you know, not just for my friends and family, but like, you know, I have little nieces that look up to me, you know, so I have to be that example of like, you know, what it takes to be a boss lady, you know, and to think that you're fabulous, you know, and to really own
it. It does rub off on other people.
Exactly.
Like when you walked in the room here, you're so positive, you're so uplifting, like you're so happy, like it makes everybody else feel happier and more uplifted. If you would have walked in here like mopey and like complaining and like, oh my god, I had a terrible day, like everybody would feel that.
Yes.
So we're always affecting our environment, whether we know it or not.
You're always bringing in that energy, you know, and so that's why I think it's really important, like before you do anything, you know, to set that intention of the energy that you want to bring into whatever space you're in, you know. Yeah. And so sometimes if I'm going to like an event, you know, and I know you go to a lot of them, and I always just tell myself, self-talk, I exude confidence, I'm a positive person, I'm a shining light for other people. You know?
So good.
And so, you know, there's nothing wrong with self-talk. Like,
no, like that's, if more people did it, imagine like how much nicer everyone would be to each other, how much better everyone would feel.
And like, guess what? You have to do it. Like, no one's going to do it for you.
Good advice. Okay, so we'll be right back with more after this break. Susie, now you help people really share their mission and shine their light. What's some of your advice? Like, how do you tell people how to do that?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think people, like I said, get really nervous. And in general, if you're being interviewed, the interviewer is not going to interrupt you. And so whenever there's silence, people get really uncomfortable and they start rambling on.
Yeah.
I'm like, answer the question and then stop, you know? And also be really focused. I think, you know, sometimes people ask about, you know, a business or whatever. Let's say you're doing a spot on TV. And then they'll be like, well, back in 1960, like that is way too long. Like, get to the point.
Where do we go?
You know?
Yeah.
People forget that, you know, because I do stuff for, like I said, police and fire departments and different businesses and pitch their businesses to get on TV and stuff like that, creating stories. What is the story?
Yeah.
How is your product or what you're doing helping other people? You know?
How is it relevant to the viewer?
Exactly.
Not just like, what do you want to...
It's not just about you.
Share about...
You know what I mean?
Whatever, yeah.
You might have a great product. Okay, well, how is that product affecting this community or a specific person? You know?
Right.
That's the story behind.
Because if people don't communicate that, then you can totally miss out on the audience that you would have been able to capture if they don't have someone like you to kind of help them through that.
Exactly.
Learn what angle to really take, right?
Exactly. And a lot of it is editing, you know, is really just kind of getting to the point. And that's what I'm really good at helping people do, is kind of get to the point and figure out how to make an emotional connection with people. You know, that's something that I guess people forget about. They're like, my business is so great and it's awesome. And, you know, they want like, you know, fireworks or whatever. And it might be, you know, but in reality, you have to get to somebody's emotion for them to really feel that.
Yes.
And to see that. So that's what I help people do.
I love it. And where can people find you if they need some help and some coaching?
So you can go to my website, solismediastrategies.com. You can reach me from there at any time. I'm also on social media. So,
So you're also bringing Hispanic Heritage Month to the city of DeSoto. Tell us about that.
So they invited me. They were announcing a proclamation announcing that they're going to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th, and they needed somebody to accept it. And so they asked me to do so. Yeah, no, it was amazing. Honestly, it really brings me a lot of pride because obviously I'm Latina. My mom is an immigrant from Mexico, and she came here legally with my father, got married, and, we grew up speaking Spanish in the household. And I told this story while I was there, that when I was about, 9 or 10 years old, she said, hey, start speaking to me in English. She wanted to learn English. And at the same time, she started going to college.
Wow.
And so she was learning a new language and going to college at the same time.
Wow.
And so for me as a young girl, to see her actually graduate from college and accomplish this while she had 3 kids and a husband.
It's kind of hard not to have like a really great work ethic and like sense of confidence and ability to pull yourself up when you see that.
Exactly.
What a good example.
For me, it was just kind of like, I saw my mom do that. And so I was like, she had all these things stacked against her. Like, what excuse do I have? All they've tried to do for me is give me a better life, know? And so for me, it's really important to be, like I said, to be that example of a Latina who is doing good things in the community and helping other people and other women specifically. Because in our culture, you are taught to be very respectful and be quiet and, not share too many of your opinions, know? And then here I am,
sharing all the opinions, and we're so glad because they're really helpful.
So it was really exciting, and I was really honored to do that.
That's so wonderful. Susy, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of your advice and tips with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
It's funny how we can get so nervous about being on camera or talking in front of people, especially when we want to share something that's important to us. It was so wonderful to hear Susy say that one of the best things we can do is just not care and share what's in our hearts. I think that that's really a recurring theme here on BZN TV. Just learning how to really love who you are, not care so much about what other people think, and shine your light. That's really what we're all here to do. And it's people like Susy who come out and really show us the way and teach us how to do that are so important to us. One of the biggest things I got from Susy's interview was just really being aware of the ways that our ego can make us feel like we have to be perfect when we're in front of the camera or in front of people or in a situation like a job interview or a first date where we really want to present ourselves the best. It's funny how our ego can make us so anxious that we're not even ourselves and we don't even share our true gifts or shine our light, which is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like if you're nervous to go on camera or nervous to go on that date and you clam up, then you really have no chance of winning because you're not being authentic. So I just love hearing from people like Susy who, she's been a reporter on NBC. She's coached some of the biggest people in business and taught them how to go on camera and share their mission. Hearing her say that really helped me to realize that in all of our lives, we all have to just remind ourselves constantly that we are good enough exactly as we are, and that whatever comes out when we're sharing our gifts or sharing our opinion, it's what's meant to come out, and just to let ourselves be and flow and communicate with each other. From tonight's episode, I hope that you guys will really tap into what your gifts are and own your passion, own your path. If you're tired of being at that job, start figuring out an exit strategy. If you feel like you're not communicating with other people, if you feel like you're not taking chances in your life and you're playing small, use tonight as inspiration to start making those changes. I loved what Susy said when she was like, just think about the things that you're doing now. And if you're not satisfied, experiment. Start doing the opposite and see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is that we fail. And you know what? If we're already feeling uncomfortable, it's really not that bad. So start experimenting with your life, loosen up a little bit, try new things, and start letting yourself really flow and enjoy your journey. I also love how Susy has been really active in establishing Hispanic Heritage Month here in the community. We so often forget when we become really present in our own lives and just on our journey and, doing all the things in our life that we need to do to succeed. We sometimes forget about all the people that came before us and how lucky we are right now, how grateful we should be for the position that we're in. I know that Val, our camerawoman, her mom was an immigrant, and she was telling me a story earlier about how her mother was literally like picking vegetables to be able to survive and make money for her family. And Susy, her parents and her mother, what she did, going back to school, learning how to speak English while in college with 3 kids. I mean, these people that have come before us, yeah, maybe they're not on television and maybe they never became extremely wealthy, but those aren't all the things that are the most important in life. When we really get down to it, it's so important to honor the people that came before us, and Hispanic heritage is a really good reminder of how much hard work people have put into just, establishing themselves in life. And that in itself is success. To overcome hardship in itself is success. And we should all start, taking a page from that book and finding that gratitude, reading the stories of people who have come before us, reading the stories of people who have struggled, and just taking some of that strength and that appreciation that they had and applying it to our own lives. Thank you for joining us for tonight's episode of BZen TV. For more information and inspiration, be sure to head to our social media at BZen TV. We'll see you guys next week.